Hi there everybody, it's Candace Rasa with Rasa Healing. It's good to see you. This video today is going to be about the two worlds of the Akashic Records and mainstream psychotherapy and how they integrate in my practice at Rasa Healing. So I'm going to start off with discussing what it is. So the Akashic Records is a very powerful, divinely channeled information superhighway that holds the record of your entire soul's past life, experiences, patterns, karma, gifts, strengths, relationship issues, talents, as well as challenges. So the information is kind of stored in this space, and I access your book like a library. I pull your book off the shelf and I'm able to receive information about whatever issue is present. The Akashic Records is a really, really powerful, very intimate, vulnerable practice, and I think that's why I really love it in the use of psychotherapy. I have had clients say to me that they really don't understand how those two worlds go together. And, my husband does a really good job of explaining the Akashic Records when he talks to people about it, because he uses the analogy from the movie Avatar. So for those of you who've seen that movie, there's a scene where the characters go and they touch the tree of life. And by touching the tree of life, they have just an immediate and intimate historical sense of the entire village and the ancestors and what they've been through. And the Akashic Records is very similar. By going into your record, I have an immediate sense of everything that has gone on in the history of your soul. So it's helpful to know that as a practitioner, of someone who's going to provide healing and guidance for clients, I have that resource. So I think that's a really good answer to why is the Akashic Records helpful with psychotherapy. So the second thing I'm going to talk about today is why it's awesome. Why those two worlds really go together. And I think one kind of immediate thing that comes to mind for me is that some clients don't have the language or emotional vocabulary to identify the core issues that are present. They can only identify the symptoms or the experiences or consequences of that pattern. So they come, and in mainstream psychotherapy may take many, many sessions in order to discover what those issues are. But in the Akashic Record, almost immediately, I'm able to determine those core issues for the client. And because I'm a licensed clinician, the information that I translate, is delicate and appropriate, and I think with as much reverence as I can possibly breathe into the practice, because I understand that it's really, these issues are fragile for people, and I want to be respectful with the information. Another really great reason why those two worlds go together is because clients often have these recurring themes and feelings that they cannot make any connection with in the present reality. So, for example, they're afraid of water, or they have this death fear of intimate relationships, and they can't figure out why, or they keep ending up in a power and control dynamic in a relationship and more of a subservient role, and they just have this happening over and over and over and over again. I find that, knowledge is really power in the Akashic Records. So, having the information about the past and being able to see those themes and have that person, have a sort of soul reckoning of, wow, I know where this information comes from, is super helpful, because they often get validation that they've been needing to have for quite a long time in regards to an issue. And I think validation and acknowledgement is really a first step to the change process. It's really kind of the crux of knowledge is power, because if you're going to change something, you need to know what it is, and you have to be supported in acknowledging what that is that you have. So kind of a question that I get a lot as well is, what is the point of getting past information to help me with the current issue? That is a question I get a lot with people who are a little bit unsure of the Akashic Records. So, I think a really powerful example of that is when I, work with clients, and I have a client who has this terrorizing fear of water, for example, or a terrorizing fear of intimate relationships. If I'm able to put in history for them when this exact issue happened, and look around that issue and help them to look at all the connections that sort of fear or injury has impacted their life, it becomes immediately empowering, because the person has this awareness that there is a wedge between what happened in the past and what's anchored in reality. So it kind of helps a person create a separation between what they perceive to be true and what is actually true about their soul's potential. Many of us, I would say almost all of us, are dragging past life stuff into the current existence, and to know the historical reference gives us the opportunity to be the observer of that information. It gives us the ability to be almost kind of controlling that situation in a way where we can see what's happening, we can interact with what's happening, and we can shift what's happening, versus being taken for a ride of your own karmic stuff that sort of has seized you, and you don't really have the ability to separate yourself from. So I think that is why past information is helpful, because it anchors you in the current space to say, wow, that was then, and this is now. So, I think the next part of this talk that is important, that comes up a lot, is, how this information gets translated to me. So the way that it works is the Akashic Record is kind of like a marquee of information that just kind of floats by, and I kind of sweep it out of the air, and I translate it over to the client. And of course the information is translated through my own filter, my own vocabulary, symbolism and emotional experiences, where I'm able to kind of push it through like my own lens. However, the information itself does not come from me. It comes from the Akashic Record or the Tree of Life, however you choose to see it. So when the information comes, I kind of move it really quickly over to the client, and I give them lots of information. I explain it in a bunch of different ways, and then we have this really cool opportunity to go back and forth and get clarity or further specific information or detailed information that they want. By doing so, I'm able to kind of shake that tree and get the core issues out of a person and out of their soul. And by doing so, we can then take those core issues and we can address them in psychotherapy. I have many clients who do both, who do a couple of sessions of Akashic Records and then a couple of sessions or perpetual ongoing psychotherapy sessions, because they are able to get all the information they need, and then we can kind of really put a plan into place. So some of the ways in which I have used the Akashic Record are the following. So I obviously work with clients individually, and we help to kind of uncover some of their soul themes and patterns, and then we work to develop some concrete goals to work through them and push through them. Obviously, another way that I do that is helping people with grief and loss. So sometimes people have recently deceased loved ones who they're struggling with closure and wanting to know some answers from a spiritual place about this. So I do some Akashic Record channeling information from their loved one or from our guide or teacher of that loved one, and then we do some grief and loss therapy after that. Another really cool way that I've used the record is in relationships. So I've had quite a few sessions with people who are going into business with other people, and the two people come to see me together, and I go into their record at the same time. Obviously, each party has to have permission to be together to do this, because the information is very vulnerable. And then we look at strengths and weaknesses and areas of growth and goal setting that the group of the relationship can work on together. I've also done the same thing in intimate relationships, so like boyfriend-girlfriend, marriage, that kind of thing. Siblings, I have done some Akashic Records with people who are looking to work through any karma that they have between them and try to transform it and heal it in the most conscious way possible. I've also read the Akashic Record of places and companies and situations and land. So there really is no limit to what has an Akashic Record. So the Akashic Record really just means, the sort of spiritual, historical record. So everything you could imagine has a historical record. So if it has a history, then we can access the record of that history. So that's kind of how I apply the Akashic Records. So, it's a beautiful practice. I think it goes hand in hand with psychotherapy, because it really enables people to become empowered with really deep soul-like related issues. And one of my favorite parts is helping people to uncover some of their talents and gifts that they've had in a past life, because sometimes, really helps us to utilize those things and to get in touch with those things and to nurture those things so that we can be our highest and best self in this life. So I super encourage anyone who's kind of on the fence about exploring this aspect of themselves to do so. And I would ever, be so honored to be that person to support you. So if you are thinking of having a session, feel free to give me a ring, or you can check out my website at rasahealingservices.com or Facebook if you want to learn more about the things that I do. So I appreciate being present with you here today, and I wish you just a wonderful and magnificent day. Bye-bye.